Please say good evening, Roger. Good evening, Roger. Thank you. It is absolutely a pleasure to play for you this evening. I am going to turn the microphone over to your captain, Corey Thompson. Let's give him a round of applause, please.
Test. Welcome, everyone. It's good to see everybody here tonight. Welcome to our 2022 Champlain-Mooers EMS Banquet. Go right ahead. Before we get to dinner, I just want to introduce several of our officers and guests that we have here with us tonight. First, the officers of Champlain-Mooers EMS, my assistant captain, Susan Roberts. The operations supervisor, Morgan Aruda. The secretary of the membership, Diane Menard. And the treasurer of our membership, Tammy Trombley. I'd like to introduce the board of directors for 2023. Our president, Mr. Roger Favreau. Vice President, Steve Menard. Our treasurer of the board, Bill Loudon. The secretary of the board, Lynn Armstrong. Champlain rep, Missy Gooley. Champlain rep, Sam Castine. The outgoing Champlain volunteer rep from 2022 was George Gehrig. And our new Champlain volunteer rep for 2023 is Chris Trombley. Our outgoing volunteer rep for Moores was Liz Fuster. And our new volunteer rep for Moores, Tony Taylor. Our bookkeeper, Juanita Munoz. And our administrative assistant, Barb Robbins. We have some past board members here with us tonight. Celine Paquette. Chuck Connor. Don Paris. And Dick Cook. I'd like to introduce our past captain, Tammy Trombley. We have several lifetime members with us tonight. Mike Baker. Dave Blix. Joe Crone. Tim and Lola Miller. Scarlett Sample. Chris Trombley. Tammy Trombley. And myself. Representing our towns and villages, from the town of Champlain, Mr. Tom Trombley. I do want to recognize from the village of Champlain, Janet McFrederick. From the town of Moores, Mr. Jeff Menard. I want to recognize from the village of Rouse's Point, Mr. John LeBounty. And from the Clinton County Legislator and Hometown Cable, Mr. Calvin Castine. From our mutual aid departments, I'd like to introduce Fire Chief Mike LeBlanc from Rouse's Point. From Shazy Fire and EMS, we have our very own James Morissette and Cody Seymour. I want to acknowledge the West Shazy Fire and Rescue Team, Chief Kevin Gerard and his standby crew that are at our station tonight. Representing the Moores Fire Department and First Response Team, our very own Tony Taylor. Representing Ellenburg Depot Fire and EMS, we have the Captain Stuart Seguin. From Clinton County Dispatch, we have dispatcher 702 Harrison Hobbs. From Clinton County OES, we have County Car 2 Kelly Donahue. And we also have our own County Car 4 Chris Trombley. No booing. I do want to thank all of our mutual aid departments collectively for all of the support you continue to give us throughout the years. At this time, I'd like to ask Kelly Donahue to come up and give a blessing before we eat. Kelly Donahue.
I know I'm going to get the numbers wrong, and I'm going to get in trouble, but we do have two. Priscilla, 704. Oh, I think I got it right. 704. And then 706. Micherie. So let's give them a round of applause. And I often think about this when we do a lot of clapping. I think it's for us also to get exercise. So I think it's good. I think it's good because as we get older, I can vouch for this. We start getting a little stiffer as we do activity during the day. So it's good to loosen up at night. On behalf of the Office of Emergency Services, Eric Day, all the dispatchers, and Shauna and Storm, we'd like to thank you. Thank you for your dedication and service to your community. Listen, you don't have to do it. Even the paid don't have to do it. It's your choice. But you make a wonderful choice, and we thank you for the dedication and the choice that you've made. All the hours that you are taking and have to learn, and especially as a paramedic, those hours have increased. But you still do it for the betterment and the good of the community. You don't have to, but we thank you for making that choice and the sacrifice. And for the volunteers, how many volunteers here? Look at that. Thank you. Because we know you don't have to do it, but you still make that choice, and you still go out and you study, and then you go to serve. And for those who have never been there, for someone who's extremely sick, or unfortunately in the process of dying, it's a challenge. And to be there with their family, you're dealing with two dynamics. And it can be challenging, but you do it well. And I know Champlain-Mooers EMS do it very well. I've heard those stories. I've seen the experience of those people working in the field. So thank you for your continued sacrifice and service for the community. Let us pray. Lord God, we give you thanks and praise for the gift of life and the gift of love in these men and women who sacrifice to serve in their community. Continue to bless them through the Spirit, to give them the strength when they are tired, to give them the joy and the love when they feel challenged, to know that they're doing their best, and that's all that's needed. And bless this food that we're about to eat, that it may nurture us, so we may always do your Son's work. We ask this in your Son's name, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen.
your captain and my friend, Mr. Corey Thompson. Give him a nice round of applause, please.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Before we get to the awards part of our night, just a big thank you to Courtney Patnode and the American Legion for a wonderful dinner tonight. During all of my lengthy introductions, I did skip a line, and I apologize, and certainly I want to acknowledge the Champlain Fire Department for being here tonight. Representing Champlain Fire is Chief Jared Baker and Chief Matt LaValle. At this time, I'd like to introduce the committee that helped put all this together tonight, the banquet committee, chaired by Diane Menard. And assisting Diane was Danielle Menard, Emily Favreau, Mary LaValle, and Liz Fuster. So big round of applause for our committee. We've had several new members join our agency, both paid and volunteer. I'm going to read down the whole list and we'll give a round of applause at the end. So on the volunteer side, new volunteers Glenn K.A., Rachel Kupek, Mary LaValle, Matt LaValle, Cassidy Robert, Austin Spooner, and Heather Taylor. Those are our new volunteers. And new to our paid staff this year, Crystal LaValle, Bobby Joe Provost, and Ryan Spawnable. We have two new EMTs that got their certification in 2022, Caleb Tremblay and Cassidy Robert. We have one new certified paramedic, Morgan Aruda. And currently, we have quite a few people in class. In the AEMT class, we have Dawn Bolris, Alana Garrow, Crystal LaValle, and Stuart Seguin. Currently in the paramedic bridge program, we have Melinda Fuster, Alex Provost, Shannon Seguin, and Jamie Willett. And currently in the paramedic program, we have John McNeil and Bobby Joe Provost. Statistics from 2022, Champlain-Mooers EMS handled a record 1,469 ambulance calls in 2022. The breakdown of those calls, 649 in the town of Champlain, 454 in the town of Moores, and 326 in the village of Rouse's Point. We also provided mutual aid 40 times in 2022. And I'm always proud to kind of acknowledge our response times to calls throughout the year. And usually that response time is roughly 3 minutes to all calls. But in 2022, we streamlined a bunch of stuff and added on an extra nighttime person so that we can get our ambulances out even quicker. And to all 1469 calls, our average response time out the door was 2.15 minutes. Some highlights from the year 2022, we did answer a record number of calls. We ordered a new ambulance to be delivered at the beginning of 2024. Recruitment of volunteers is on the rise, and last year we talked about how the pandemic really affected EMS in our communities, and it is really inspiring to see how many volunteers are coming out and joining our agency. We've held multiple cross trainings with our local fire departments. We had 10 providers on the paid and volunteer side that moved up in a level of care through higher level training. We installed narcotics boxes in all of our ambulances. one thing that I'm super proud of is we established the operations supervisor position, which is currently held by Morgan Aruda. This added another level of administration to our agency to allow things to flow quicker and things to get done in a more timely manner. So I really appreciate Morgan for everything that she's done since she came onto that position in July. And probably the biggest highlight from 2022, what I'm most proud of is we established the Orville Bing Glode Education Fund to help send our members through future paramedic programs, thanks to Bing. Our goals, and we're well into 2023, but our goals for this year is to continue to support the transition of providers to higher levels of care, to continue to support post-pandemic volunteerism in our communities, and to continue to provide quality response and care to the citizens of Champlain, Moores, and Rouse's Point. At this time, I'd like to ask our operations supervisor, my dear friend Morgan Aruda, to come up and help me with some awards. We're going to start with the Top Responder Awards for 2022, and we have 4 awards to give out. The first award is the top driver responder in the Moores end of our district, and that goes to Diane Menard for $76. Our top responder on the medical side in the Moores end of our district is Susan Roberts. Our top responder driver in the Champlain end of our district is Caleb Trombley. And our top responder on the medical side in Champlain is Chris Trombley. Next, I'd like to acknowledge years of service. Unfortunately, the years of service pins were back ordered and they did not come in for tonight. So when I call your name, please stand to be acknowledged for your years of service. With 5 years of service, John McNeil.
Look good, John. Sit.
Thank you, John. Also with 5 years of service, Bernie Savage. Five years of service, Shannon Seguin. And with 5 years of service, Stuart Seguin. And we have 2 that are celebrating 10 years of service, Morgan Aruda. And Diane Menard. Thank you very much, guys. She may be here later. I do want to acknowledge we give board EMS board awards for folks that have served on our EMS board for their complete term and then come off the board. And Liz Fuster served as our volunteer board rep for the Moores Volunteers for 3 years before transitioning to our full-time paid staff. And she also completed the AEMT course recently. So I did want to acknowledge Liz Fuster for her work with our EMS board. At this time, I'd like to ask our president, Roger Favreau, to come forward. You can clap for him, that's okay. It goes to his head, we know. Roger, you can stand right here. Camera's over there if you want to give a smile. Roger joined our EMS Board of Directors in 2013. He was voted president of our board in 2019 as a successor to Bing Glode after his passing. Roger has proudly served this board and our communities for the past 10 years. He has served on several committees during his tenure, including finance committees, budget committees, policy committees, and town contracts. But the committee I think Roger is most proud of is the Ambulance Station Committee, founded in 2014. Roger was part of a team that saw one of the greatest advancements in the history of Champlain-Mooers EMS. Roger remains extremely proud of the work that went into the building of a new ambulance station in Champlain. It is hard to believe it's been over 8 years since that project first began. Roger, you have served the membership of Champlain EMS Incorporated with pride and dignity, and I am grateful to work alongside you as our president. Ladies and gentlemen, for a decade of service to the board of directors, please help me recognize Mr. Roger Fabro. Expect this to be at the next meeting.
I went 4 years without one of these. Look out for now. You don't know when you start.
Corey will be asking at the next one.
10 more years. 10 more years.
The next part of our award ceremony is to acknowledge the SAVE Awards that we had over the last year. And tonight we have 4 SAVE Awards that we are going to acknowledge. And these are in chronological order. So the first SAVE Award occurred on May 16th, 2022. At approximately 9 a.m., the day crew of Tim Miller and Dawn Bulris were chatting it up with the outgoing night crew of Alex Provost and Caleb Snide, when the tones went off for a 75-year-old male who was inbound to the EMS Station 1 with trouble breathing. Dispatchers Amy Brewster, Joe Kaye, and Harrison Hobbs were on the phone with the patient's son, helping him to get to the ambulance station while relaying information back to the crews. Chris Trombley met the vehicle on Route 11 and directed it to the ambulance station in Champlain. When the vehicle pulled up in front of the bay doors, Caleb Snide went over to the passenger door and quickly determined that this patient was in full cardiac arrest. The patient was pulled from the vehicle and CPR was started immediately by Caleb and Alex. Tim and Dawn grabbed all of the equipment from the ambulance and deployed the Lucas device for CPR, the LifePak 15 monitor to monitor the patient's heart, and also began managing the patient's airway. Paramedic Tim Miller started an IO in the patient's leg and administered a dose of epinephrine. The crew noticed a shockable rhythm on the monitor, and 1 shock was administered, converting the patient into a normal rhythm with a strong pulse. Arriving on scene was EMT Cody Seymour. Chris gathered some information from the family to give to the crew, and the crew began packaging the patient and transferring to the ambulance for transport to CBPH. The patient was given several medications along with high-quality airway management during the transport. The patient was transported to CBPH and further transferred to the cardiac team. At this time, I would like to introduce the crew members that saved the life of Mr. Henry Garso. And we'll start with our 3 dispatchers, Dispatcher 705, Amy Brewster, Dispatcher 703, Joe Kaye, and Dispatcher 702, Harrison Hobbs. And I'll ask Kelly Donahue to come up and receive those awards on their behalf. EMT Cody Seymour. Cody was the driver on this call, so they got to the hospital in about 6 minutes. EMT Chris Trombley. EMT Dawn Bulris. Critical Care Tech, Alex Provost. Critical Care Tech, Caleb Snide. And the paramedic in charge, Mr. Tim Miller.
That's why they call it Papa.
Stand up, Tom.
I did speak with Mr. Garceau, who wanted to be here tonight to acknowledge the folks that ultimately saved his life, but he could not be here, so he does send his thanks and warm wishes for a job well done that day. I do have to say that on a personal note, this situation just happened to be videotaped on our security systems in front of our ambulance bays. I was at school, and when I got back that afternoon, I watched this back. I got to tell you, I was in complete awe and emotion watching this scene unfold, in live time. To watch the crew do what they did was literally like something out of a movie. It was textbook. It took less than 3 minutes for this crew to restart Mr. Garceau's heart. And because of that, he is alive and well today. So congratulations to the crew. They're going to stand for you.
Sure, blame me.
I also do want to say, obviously we're talking about ambulance calls. All of the family members and people involved in these calls have given us full permission to talk about these calls. So I just wanted to kind of publicly say that. So this next call occurred in February 20th of this current year, 2023, at the home of our very own Kevin Triller. Kevin's girlfriend, Valerie, was up in Montreal and tried to get a hold of Kevin at around 8 o'clock at night and could not get a hold of him. Waited a little bit, tried to get a hold of him again, and was getting nervous as it was approaching a good hour that she had not heard from him. And as it goes, they always checked in about, between 8 and 8:30 at night. So Valerie called the neighbor, Larry Sorrell, to go over next door. And when Larry arrived, found Mr. Triller unresponsive in his garage and struggling to breathe. Larry immediately called 911, and Champlain-Mooers EMS was dispatched to a man down, unconscious, for unknown reasons. The EMS crew of Craig Bosley, Chris Trombley, and Caleb Trombley arrived to find an unresponsive male, but he was breathing. Patient was given oxygen therapy and moved quickly to the ambulance. With Chris driving, Craig and Caleb went through several diagnostic tests with no significant findings. Craig decided to check the patient's CO levels and realized that they were reading higher than usual. With normal readings between 0 and 5 in a patient, Mr. Triller's readings were showing above 32 on our CO monitor. The crew then requested the Champlain Fire Department to respond over to Kevin's residence to investigate a possible CO leak. The fire department crew of Matt LaValle, Joe Dallaire, Greg Delisle, Jared Baker, and JP Filion responded to the residence and sampled the air quality in the garage where Kevin had been working on his ambulance. To give you a little insight on CO level readings, a normal CO level in air should be 0. When levels get between 50 and 100, people will start having symptoms of headache and dizziness within 1 hour. At 200 parts per million, symptoms will start within 30 minutes and can be fatal if exposed for more than 2 hours. The fire department reported back to the ambulance crew that the readings in the garage were over 600 parts per million. With this knowledge, EMS crews continued high-flow oxygen therapy and monitored the patient's heart and established IVs. The patient was showing some signs of improvement during transport and ultimately was transferred to the CVPH Medical Center crew for further testing and treatment. This call is a great example of the collaboration between Champlain Fire and Champlain-Mooers EMS working together to protect and save one of our own citizens. At this time, to help me recognize the life-saving crew members on this call, I would like to introduce the patient from this story, Mr. John Triller. I think before we give out the awards, we'll ask ultimately the lady that saved his life, his girlfriend Valerie, to come up and join him. Congratulations. I'd like to ask Larry Sorrell to come up and receive an award. I'd like to acknowledge the dispatchers on this call, dispatcher 730, Mark Ryan, and with us tonight, dispatcher 704, Priscilla Albin, to come forward. I'd like to introduce the fire department members that were involved with this call. Firefighter Greg Delisle.
Thank you, sir.
Fire Captain Joe Dallaire.
Thank you, sir.
Second Assistant Chief Matt LaValle.
Thank you, sir.
First Assistant Chief Jared Baker.
Thank you, sir.
And he couldn't be with us tonight, but Fire Chief JP Filion has an award. And the ambulance crew that took care of Mr. Triller, EMT Caleb Trombley. EMT Chris Trombley.
This one. Oh, hey. Thank you, sir.
And the paramedic in charge, Craig Bosley.
Thank you, sir. You caught me off guard on this. Ignorance, you learn a lot, and I've learned a lot about CO2. Now have exhaust hoses on vehicles, holes in the garage doors, 6 new carbon monoxide detectors that make the others go off, and an entire Alexa system where I can talk and send messages. I remember the last thing walking, there's a bathroom in the garage, as I wasn't feeling good, and looking at my phone and saying, I better call somebody, and then the lights went out. But thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much, and ladies.
Can I say something? It was a really traumatic experience. I didn't realize there were so many people involved. Thank you, thank you, thank you. On a little personal note, I mean, apart from Larry, who I was able to, I didn't know how to get to him, so we were Facebook friends, so I called him on Messenger, and he sends back a text saying, I don't know how to do this. What's up? And that's when I told him I was worried, and he got in the car and went over right away. And I want to say thank you to Chris Champlain, because he gave him the number and he called me and I was like, what's going on? What did he goes, he's a mess. You're coming down now. And he's like a dad to me. And I just want to say the human side of it was just, thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Chris was just telling me how easy it is to, speed to the hospital when you have a justice of the peace in the back of the ambulance. You can pretty much get away with anything. Our third SAVE Award occurred on March 22nd of 2023. At 44 minutes past midnight, Champlain-Mooers EMS was dispatched by Jen Bolris and Mark Ryan to the Border Patrol station on the Ridge Road for a 30-year-old male in full cardiac arrest. Responding to the call was paramedic Morgan Arruda, EMT Cody Seymour, and EMT Caleb Trombley. Upon arrival, they found a male in cardiac arrest with CPR in progress by the Border Patrol agents. Cody and Caleb quickly deployed the Lucas device for CPR, while Morgan did what you would expect any rookie paramedic to do on her first solo call. She pulled out her phone, she called my house, and said, "Corey, I'll need you on this call." I arrived on scene. CPR was being given by the Lucas device. Caleb and Cody were providing advanced airway management, and Morgan had established an IO in the patient's leg and had given 1 round of epinephrine. The patient was in a shockable rhythm, so the crew deployed a shock and continued CPR. After 2 minutes, no pulse could still be detected. Morgan administered another dose of epinephrine, and after a few minutes, the patient was in a shockable rhythm again. The crew delivered a second shock followed by CPR, and after about a minute, a normal rhythm with a strong pulse was present. The patient was quickly packaged, and with the assistance of several Border Patrol agents, the patient was transferred to the ambulance for transport to CVPH. During transport, several drugs and advanced airway management was used to stabilize this patient. The patient ultimately was transferred to CVPH Medical Center for further care and treatment. Reports on a follow-up from the next day was that over the next 24 hours, this patient was shocked 12 more times. Subsequently, the patient was transferred to UVM Medical Center in Burlington and had a defibrillator pacemaker emergently placed. A week later, this patient was awake, talking, and ultimately discharged with a clean bill of health from UVM Medical Center. At this time, I would like to acknowledge the crew members for their life-saving efforts on this call. Dispatcher 723 Jen Bolris and Dispatcher 730 Mark Ryan. And again, I'll ask Kelly Donahue to come up and accept those awards. EMT Caleb Trombley. EMT Cody Seymour.
Paramedic Corey Thompson.
And paramedic in charge, Morgan Arruda. And our last Save Award happened quite recently on April 29th of this year at 4 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon. The afternoon St. Mary's church service was about to get underway, and Town Supervisor Tom Trombley and his wife Kim were walking into St. Mary's Church in Champlain when they noticed a man laying on the ground outside the church. They quickly approached the man, Mr. Tom Gowett, and determined that his skin was blue and he was not breathing. Kim called 911 and requested an ambulance. Dispatchers Brandon Ducko and Amy Brewster took the 911 call and proceeded to give Kim directions on how to immediately care for this patient, as well as dispatch our agency to St. Mary's Church. Tom rolled the patient over and determined he was not breathing and did not have a pulse in his neck. He started to do chest compressions at this time. Inside the church, an announcement was made for anyone with medical certification to help outside. Our very own Tammy Trombley was in the church singing. That is an honest mistake. It's supposed to say singing. Tammy rushed out to help Tom and Kim. Tammy assisted with airway management while Tom continued CPR. The ambulance crew of Alex Provost, Caleb Snide, and Cody Seymour arrived on scene within a few minutes. The patient now had a slow pulse and was not breathing adequately. The patient was moved to the ambulance, and with Cody driving, Caleb and Alex worked to stabilize the patient. With aggressive airway management, multiple IVs, and various medications, the crew was able to get this man's heart back to a normal rhythm and breathing on his own. The patient was transferred to the hospital ER team and has since returned home and is making a good recovery. At this time, I would like to invite Mr. Tom Gowett and his children, Heather and Jamie, to come up and recognize the crew members from this day. I'd like to acknowledge the two dispatchers on this call, Dispatcher 705, Amy Brewster, and Dispatcher 731, Brandon Ducko, and I'll ask Kelly Donahue to come up and receive those awards. Critical Care Tech and Registered Nurse Tammy Trombley. EMT Cody Seymour. Critical Care Tech Alex Provost. Critical Care Tech in charge, Caleb Snide. And to the husband and wife team that ultimately saved Mr. Gowett's life, Tom and Kim Trombley. Ladies and gentlemen, one more time for this crew.
So once again, it proves, it starts at dispatch, it's critical that they get the right information, and then they can get the help there. And it proves how people survive because of the training that you all do to work hard. So congratulations again for all those who took part in keeping the life of these people going, right? Let's give them a round of applause. I also heard, once I heard there was someone that might have missed church, that they were dispensed for that day of the good deed. You weren't like the priest that walked away, you actually stopped to help someone in need. So again, Tammy, you're dispensed.
I went back into church.
Thank you, Kelly. At this time, I'd like to ask Caleb Snide to come forward, please.
Hero!
You want to stand or do you need a seat? You're good. Caleb began working for Champlain-Mooers EMS in July of 2016 as a per diem ALS provider. His full-time job was at CBPH, and through several attempts, I was finally able to convince him to come over to our place as a full-time ALS provider in 2020 during the heart of the COVID-19 pandemic. Caleb was a fairly seasoned tech at this point, but over the last 3 years, his skill set and confidence have skyrocketed in the world of EMS. Caleb, I think you and I can both agree that the reason you are so good at dosage calculations and med conversions is because you had a great math teacher at Shazy School, Miss Kelly Penfield. But I will take credit for a few things. For instance, you're now a good poker player. You hit a pretty good golf ball now. And you know what kind of scotch to order when you're out at a restaurant, so that's all me. I've been on numerous calls with Caleb, and I have seen firsthand what an excellent provider he is. On one call in particular that I'll never forget, Caleb was caring for an infant who was unconscious and struggling to thrive. Caleb acted quickly and was able to diagnose a previously undetected diabetic issue in this baby, to which ultimately saved the child's life. In speaking with the parents of this child on multiple occasions, they continuously give credit to Caleb and his crew for the quick thinking and care on this call. This is just one of the many calls that exemplify the type of provider that Caleb Snide is. Caleb is moving on from EMS this summer and pursuing his dream to be an RN. He has accepted an internship at Duke University, and I can say with confidence, Duke is lucky to be getting Caleb Snide. At this time, please help me in recognizing our Employee of the Year for 2022, Mr. Caleb Snide. He's going straight to the bar. At this time, I'd like to ask Caleb Trombley to come forward.
Speech! I know it costs us a lot.
Yeah. Caleb went on his first ambulance call before he was even born. When Tammy was, 6-7 months pregnant, she would show up on calls. And of course, Caleb had no choice but to ride along. And while most moms will play like jazz music or opera music for their unborn child, Tammy thought lights and sirens would be a better fit for Caleb. And now that we have all gotten to know Caleb over the years, I think we'd all agree that Tammy should have gone with jazz and opera music. Caleb grew up with two parents who lived for EMS and helping others. He was immersed in it throughout his childhood. Caleb also grew up around many of us, going to the station, answering calls with mom and dad, and developing a sense of curiosity at a young age. He learned from his parents that helping others matters. Caleb officially joined Champlain-Mooers EMS in 2021. He began answering numerous calls and learning the ins and outs of our agency. Caleb became a driver in 2022 and quickly became an ambitious, responsible young driver for our agency, evidenced by his Top Responder of the Year award earlier tonight. Most recently, Caleb enrolled in and passed the New York State EMT class, allowing him to serve as a driver and an EMT to help his community. Caleb, I am extremely proud of you. I still remember the infamous cake day at the fire station when you were 6 months old. But now you have exceeded all of our expectations of the young man you would grow up to become. And with that said, the Eric Monty Driver of the Year Award for 2022 goes to Mr. Caleb Tremblay. You don't want him to talk. At this time, I'd like to ask Emily Favreau to come forward, please. It's like a Shazy reunion up here. Emily joined Champlain-Mooers EMS in 2021. Emily came to us as a certified basic EMT, but admittedly had only been on about 5 ambulance calls in her time. Since 2021, Emily has answered 145 ambulance calls with this agency. She has found her home away from home. She has so much fun with her night shift buddies and has developed a sense of pride and accomplishment as a member of Champlain-Mooers EMS. Emily, you have come a long way in these past 2 years, and I am very proud of the EMT you have become. Ladies and gentlemen, our BLS Provider of the Year for 2022, Miss Emily Favreau. At this time, I'd like to ask Susan Roberts to come forward, please. So much has been said about Susie over the years, but I'll give you the highlights. Sue joined Champlain-Mooers EMS in 2007 when Champlain EMS and Mooers EMS merged to become one agency. She has dedicated much of her adult life to helping others in her community through EMS and the church. Sue is a critical care tech and assistant captain with Champlain-Mooers EMS. Sue looks after all of us. She continuously reminds us all that while we are out there taking care of others, it is important to remember to take care of ourselves and to take care of each other. Susie, we have been through so much over the last 16 years, and through all the ups and downs, I appreciate you always being there for your community, for me, and for all of us. You are truly one of a kind. With much love and gratitude, I present the Kenneth L. LaPlante ALS Provider of the Year Award for 2022 to Assistant Captain Susan Roberts. In closing, I just want to say a few things. We are thankful for all of the support that we receive from the town of Champlain, the town of Moores, and the village of Rouse's Point. And we are also extremely thankful for our neighboring agencies who share in the dedication to serving our communities. I want to thank everybody who came out to join us tonight to celebrate another successful year. I consider myself extremely blessed to continue to serve as your EMS captain. I am so proud of each and every one of you for putting your lives on the line to serve our communities with such honor and passion. When we dismiss, all members are asked to come up and meet with the banquet committee to receive your gifts. So when we break here, just come on up and get your gifts.
Can we take a picture of all our members?
Yeah, absolutely. Diane's requesting a picture of all members. One more time, I want to thank the American Legion for being such a great host tonight. So one more round of applause for the American Legion. And with that said, I'm going to turn things over to Roger from CR Tunes to provide our entertainment for tonight. Thank you all for coming. Drive safe.